Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, Divine Attributes Part 8, and we will cover some more divine attributes. Three are covered today: Al-Hakeem, Al-Ghafoor, and Al-Kareem. And these are the references. And this is our contact in case there is any question, query regarding this presentation or any of our past presentations. Divine attributes, listing the main ones. This slide I have shared previously as well. We will just keep marking as we will progress forward, and all those divine attributes which we cover, I will keep highlighting them. And today we are covering Al-Hakeem. All these yellow ones we have already covered. And we will cover Al-Ghafoor, and we will cover Al-Kareem. Next attribute for our discussion is Al-Hakeem. What is hikmah? And a root is given over here. One is called law, and another relating thing is the purpose and aim of this law, and the reason for its formulation or existence. So we have seen in human world that parliaments and governments, they make laws. And then related to that law, there is a rationale behind it, there is a reason behind it, i.e. why such and such law is legislated, formulated. So this aspect comes under Hakeem. For example, Quran says, Kutiba alaykum iza hazara ahdakumul mautu in taraka khairal wasiyatu lil walidaini wal akrabaina bil marufe haqqan alal muttaqeen. And Koteba, we know, means it is prescribed, that this law is made compulsory on you, that when death approaches any of you, if he leaves behind any goods, that he should make a bequest to parents and next of kin according to reasonable usage. So this is regarding making a will, and it is addressed to Momineen that they must make will before they die, because death is a fact of life. And then Quran says, why should they do it? This is due from the Muttaqeen so that they can become Muttaqeen. And we know that the Quran says, this is the book for those who wish to become Muttaqeen. So it is a guidance for becoming Muttaqi. And Muttaqi covers every aspect of becoming a Mu'min, which is essential for establishing the system of Deen. So the Quran has first narrated the law that is making a will, and then it said that why should you follow this law is to become muttaqi. So this is the way we should study the Quran, and we know about it that wherever Quran gives some kind of instruction, command, then it also says why should you do it. The reason, the rationale behind it is also explained. When some dictator, i.e. every man-made system, implements a law, he does not state clearly its hikmat. And this is quite common among those who make laws in the human world, that rarely these rationale and reasonings are explained. And sometimes they have hidden motives. What they state is the purpose of their law is not actually that, but to curb, for example, freedom of people, or to create a fear among them, or to control them. He does not feel the need to do this. His word, which is based on unbridled thinking, is law, and obedience to it, whether willing or unwilling, is the duty of everyone. But when some just ruler implements a law, he ensures that the aim and purpose of it is well understood. And this is as much applicable in the man-made world as well, that when a command is given, when a law is made, then the people should be made to understand the rationale behind it. In some countries nowadays, some kind of opinions are sought before formulating some law, so that the people know that it is formulated and implemented for their benefit. And that is important in law, that people should understand that this law is in their own interest. And that is why some reason, some rationale should also be explained to them. Because human beings work better when they are convinced about something and is in their interest. In this way, the incentive and motivation emerges from the depths of their hearts. Allah is not a dictator, and we know it. He is Al-Hakeem. So whatever He has explained in the Quran, we can understand it by using the rational side of our intellect. Therefore, when he sent down the book, the code of laws, he also made clear the hikmat of these laws. Both of these are sent down from Allah and preserved in the Quran. So that means Quran contains the laws, commands, instructions, principles, values, and also contains the reason for that, the rationale behind it, and we have to follow that. We have to understand it and then follow it. So that means we have to become Hakeem as well. The objective is that when we obey these laws, to keep verifying whether the stated aim is being achieved or not. And this is an important point, that whatever law which is given in the Quran, we should also check it in the outer world whether we are following it or not by checking the signs which are given in the Quran, the rationales given in the Quran, that once you follow that law, then this is the outcome of that. For example, in the case of Salat, Quran says, Inna salata tanha anil fashai wal munkar, that if there is a system of Salat in the land, then there will be no fosha and there will be no munkar, that is, evils and wrongs will become eliminated. Next is expanding hikmat further. From the viewpoint of the aim and purpose, cause and effect, hikmat also means reasoning and rational thinking. So that means through hikmat we expand the horizon of our intellect. Our consciousness expands. We understand those things which were not clear to us before that law came into existence. The Quran desires that whatever action we carry out should be done by employing intellect and reasoning and by reflecting on it in detail. This ability of reasoning and consciousness is also called hikmat. This potential exists within each human being. From this respect, a human being is called a rational animal. Hikmat, that is reasoning, is a human potential which keeps acquiring maturity through knowledge and reflection. And we know that among animal kingdom, there is no mutual consultation because they don't possess choice and intent. When some ideology is brought into implementation, there is a need for balanced planning so that the action becomes fruitful. This is also called hikmat. So planning is part of it. The meaning of hikmat is also the potential, that is, it is the power or a force to make decisions, particularly keeping in mind justice and fairness in the decision making. For this, the word hukman has also appeared at some places. This potential is possessed by both a Nabi and a non-Nabi. For a Nabi, that hikmat is specific, which is revealed by Allah, because first the wahi or the revelation is sent to the messenger and then he shares it with others. So that means first he understands it and then he passes on to others. Other than that, once it is revealed, then all human beings become included in it if they acquire it. And now we know that no more messenger is coming because there is no need for any further messenger to be sent into the human world because the Quran is finalized and preserved. Some more aspects of this root. The meaning of hakamun is the one who decides, a mediator. The meaning of the common root of hukumat and hikmat is the same, is that the hukumat, that is the government, should be based on hikmat, that is reason, not on dishonesty and deceit. So there is no concealment, secret kept within the Islamic system of Deen, and it is very transparent because there is nothing to hide. If it is based on the Quran and its values, then it has to be transparent and there cannot be any secret. Only that government can be based on hikmat, which is shaped according to the divine laws. If this is not the case, then it will be mulukiyat, which is based on tyranny and dictatorship. And mulukiyat means the rule is that of human beings. It is human beings who formulate the laws to control other human beings. From this respect, Allah of the Quran is hikam, possessor of hikmat and hukumat, i.e. whose rule is based on hikmat, not on deceit. If there is a dispute between a husband and wife, and here an example is quoted, then, for example, Quran says, وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ شِقَاقَ بَيْنِهِمَا فَبَعْثُوا حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا. If you fear a breach between them, that is between husband and wife, there is some conflict and matter is not being resolved, then appoint two arbiters. And Quran has used the word here, hakam. And it is given here, hakaman. One from his family and another from hers. That is, one is arbiter appointed by the family of the husband and then another one from the side of wife. Then the verse is ended with, Inna Allaha kana aliman khabira. Surely Allah is Aleem and Khabir. And we have gone through Aleem previously, and Khabir over here will mean that it should be known. There should be any sub-clauses, and the procedure for this arbitration should be worked out by Jamaat Momineen, by the system. So that is important, that Momineen are to be Aleem and Khabir as well. In reality, Allah is Hakam, as all decisions are according to His book, and men possessing His attributes carry out the affairs of the state on His behalf. And that is the important aspect. We have gone over it again. It's good to reiterate it, that it is Momineen who have to acquire these divine attributes and then run the system of Deen on behalf of Allah. These arbiters will decide according to the Quran, because وَتَمَّتْ كَالِمَاتُ رَبِّكَ صِدْقًا وَعَدْلًا لَا مُبَدِّلَ لِكَالِمَاتِهِ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. The words of your Rabb have been completed in truth and adl. No one can change His words. He is Sami and Aleem. So Jamaat Momineen will be Sami and Aleem as well. And that means that if the laws of Allah are followed, then that society will turn into paradise. They will always get good results by following the laws of Allah. The next slide is an excerpt from the human self and Allah, Al-Hakeem, and reflecting on this root a bit further. The reins of a horse are called Al-Hakamatu. The task of a rein is to not allow the animal to go out of control and become unruly, instead to make it go at the correct speed on the right path. Hence, Al-Hikmatu means to retain matters within the correct boundaries and to not allow any among them to go all over the place. So that means really defining the limits of the system of Deen. That person is called Hakeemun, who makes everything with great beauty and precision. And that is another added aspect of this, that they have to add beauty and precision to it. That means the results of following this attribute will be in terms of the environment. These will become beautiful, precision, and justice will prevail over there, with correct proportion and balance, keeping its every requirement in view. In fact, accomplishes all matters in this way. In the light of these meanings, this reality will become clear, that when Allah is called Al-Hakeem, what the meaning of this will be. Since this divine attribute is very fundamental and important, it is mentioned at many places in the Quran. For example, the two examples are quoted here, Hakeemun Khabir and Hakeemun Aleemun. So wherever this attribute appears, we will see, for example, with Aziz, it appears as Hakeem. So that means that the power will stay within the boundaries defined by the Quran. And Quran is also called Tilka Ayatul Kitabil Hakeem. So that means Allah is Al-Hakeem, His book is Al-Hakeem, and Momineen will also acquire this attribute of Hakeem. From this it is evident how every matter will be based on wisdom in a society which consists of those individuals whose self is a holder of the divine attributes. So this attribute has to be acquired before the system of Deen is established. Some aspects of Hukumat or government or rule. Its fundamental meaning is to stop someone at one place, i.e. to inform him that you cannot go beyond this limit. It is called hukmun, i.e. decision. The meaning of Hakeem is the one who makes decisions, i.e. defining the limits of the rights and dues of everyone, and the one who decides whose limit is to extent in those matters in which differences arise. So after implementing this kind of an attribute in the land, then differences should gradually disappear. In modern terminology, the expression for this defining of limits is the legislating of laws and the functioning of these legislated laws, Because human beings, when they see that these laws are in their interest to be followed, then human beings will use their rational side and follow those laws. And if there are any transgressions, then those can be dealt with effectively. There are two parts of a government. One deals with the legislation of laws, and the second with the implementation of these laws. According to the Quran, as a fundamental principle, the right for the legislation of laws does not belong to any human being. And this is important for us to understand as students of the Quran. And we should not have any desire within our heart to formulate any laws to control other human beings. Once Quran has made its decision and told us that all these values, laws, principles given in it are immutable, then by following those, we can turn any land into a paradise, which is defined by the Quran in very clear terms. This right is only possessed by Allah. He has given these laws in the shape of the commands and principles in the Quran. Nor can there be any change in these commands, nor can any addition or subtraction take place. And that is a great certainty. See how much peace Quran is giving us, that these values will never change and these will stay the same from beginning to the end. Nor any alteration and transformation. The government which will be established in the name of Allah and which will be called the Islamic government with respect to the legislation of laws, its authority will only be this much, that it will work out the details in the light of these principles according to the needs of the era. And that is important for us to understand, that the permanent values will remain immutable. And then within those permanent values, according to the era in which we are living, we can formulate sub-clauses. And these sub-clauses will change in any subsequent era according to their own requirements in the future. A few more aspects of Hukumat. The details, that is sub-clauses to the laws of the Quran worked out by the Momineen, will be subjected to any changes and alterations necessary according to the demands of the era. But the Quranic principles, for example, the permanent values, commands of Allah, the divine attributes, will remain immutable. If these are changed, then the benefits associated with these will disappear, as happened after the initial era of Islam. And this is something we should always keep in mind, that if we change, if the system changes any of the permanent values, then it means that the benefits associated with that system will disappear, because that will become shirk. And this is what happens, that within a short period of time, these nations then decline and go into oblivion. The fundamental duty of the Islamic rule, which is established on the behalf of Allah, is to implement the commands and laws of the Quran. This is termed as Deen, and that is through the willingness of their heart. It is not mechanical, because this system simply cannot function if it is implemented mechanically. Hence, for the establishment and strengthening of Deen, the need for an independent state is essential. If there is no independent state, then where will these laws be implemented? So some people think under the domain of religion that religion doesn't need any land, but the system of Deen requires land. We know that in the outer world, beyond human interference, the whole system is functioning in accordance with the laws defined by Allah. From this aspect, the external universe is the state of Allah. His laws are being obeyed, and using this analogy in the life of the hereafter, it will be the rule of Allah. And that is another very interesting point, that in the outer world, beyond the domain of human control, Allah's laws are working. And Allah has asked us to follow the guidance of Wahi and implement those laws which are given in the Quran, and that stability, that strength, that steadfastness, and all the benefits associated with the laws of Allah, then you will accrue in the man-made, in your own system. Man is given this choice, that if he wishes, he can live his life according to the laws of Allah, or if he wishes, he can live his life against these laws. But if he lives his life against these laws, then he will create a world like 2025. Hence, in the human world, the government of Allah is established through human hands. The people through whose hands this rule is established, is called the Jamaat Momineen. Next slide is some reflections on becoming Hakeem on the path towards Deen. The Quran has given the verdict between Kufr and Islam by declaring, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. Those who do not make decisions according to what is sent down, the Quran, they are called kafir. And kafir over here means those who do not wish to follow the laws of Allah as revealed in the Quran, i.e. they will not obtain the benefits associated with the book of Allah. And this is something we should always keep in mind, that kafir means that we cannot get the benefits which are associated in following the wahi of Allah, revelation of the Quran. And we can see that collectively, presently in the world, all countries are following man-made laws. As a result, there is the chaos and conflicts in every country. The meaning of hukum is the possession of authority to make decisions. This attribute helps us to understand the man-made systems prior to embarking on the journey towards the establishment of the system of Deen. And Quran, for example, in the case of Messenger Yusuf says, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ أَتَيْنَهُ حُكْمًا وَإِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. So this attribute has to be acquired before thinking of establishing the system of Deen. When Yusuf attained maturity, he was endowed with the ability to judge matters justly and with knowledge. This is because he had led a very balanced and righteous life. This is how we reward Muhsineen. Next is, the same words have appeared for the messenger Musa. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى أَتَيْنَهُ حُكْمًا وَإِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. The messenger Musa grew up in Pharaoh's palaces under these circumstances. When he reached maturity, he turned out to possess a balanced personality. Then we bestowed on him knowledge and the ability to judge affairs. Indeed, we bless with such abilities whosoever lives the life of Muhsineen. So before the system of Deen is established, there is a lot to do before reaching that stage of understanding. So this is important, that this particular, for example, attribute, we should know many of its aspects by going through the Quran. Because wherever this attribute appears, we should look at those verses before and after, that what is being discussed and how this attribute will help us to bring a change within our own understanding. In relation to the messenger Ibrahim, decision making in life, Rabbi Habli Hukman wal Hikni bis Salihin. So becoming very, very alert and alive to this aspect, that we will, or I will follow, I will understand this attribute, manifest it, and then work together so that we understand that how it is applicable to the collective life to be lived under the system of Deen. And I supplicate to my Rabb to grant me insight and strength to judge in affairs, and to include me among those who have become Salihin. And Salihin are those who bring out their best, that is their latent potentials, using the value system of the Quran. Now we go over to the next attribute, Al-Ghafoor. Now we should keep in mind that over here we are only sharing summary of it. Otherwise, Hakeem is mentioned in numerous places in the Quran. And wherever it is mentioned, we should look at it, that what is in it for me. Root is given here. The fundamental meaning of this root is to protect. The meaning of Maghfirat is protection. The meaning of Istighfar is to seek the means of protection. The meaning of Ghafoor, Ghaffar, Ghafir, the one who provides protection. Ghufran means protection. So these terms are used in the Quran, and we can figure them out as we study in our own time. Whatever task is carried out against the law of Allah, its outcome is loss or harm. And that is important. We simply cannot avoid loss or harm and suffering if we go against the law of Allah. It may not appear immediately, because there is a time of respite between the time we carry out collective actions or individual actions and their outcome. But it is bound to come. This damage is in the outer world and also to the human self. If such a life is lived which is not against the laws of Allah, then man can remain protected from this kind of harm. So Ghafoor is related to not going against the laws of Allah and then getting that protection which is specified in the Quran in a number of places. This will be a protective aspect. If sometimes an error is made, then there is the possibility to rectify this damage. This action will be called curative. And we know the word taba is used for that, that is toba, that we go back and take the correct path. But the way in which a crime is not the repetition of some word, but is the intention and action of going against the law of Allah, in the same way Maghfirat is not the reiteration of some word or words. This is achieved by carrying out tasks according to the laws of Allah. We know in the religious domain people use these kind of terms like astaghfirullah, which is meaningless, because unless the meanings of those are understood in terms of practical terms, asking for forgiveness through our words means nothing according to the Quran. If we cause harm to some other human being, then it is possible he may not take revenge and may overlook it. This will be called to forgive. But due to this causation of harm, the harm that we did to ourselves, that is alamat nafsi, no other person can forgive it. Its rectification is only possible by us if we then take actions as per the procedure defined in the Quran. So apparently, if we do wrong to someone, then we might think that there is no punishment and we might get away with that. But in fact, we simply cannot get away with that, because in the long run, there will be outcomes somewhere in the future. And of course, our self also becomes affected. For example, what is going on in Gaza and all the murders which are taking place over there are bound to have some effects in the future. Maybe short term or long term, but these are bound to appear at some point in the future. An excerpt from the meanings of the Quran, volume 2. According to the lexicon, the meaning of Ghafoor is to make someone wear such a thing due to which he can remain protected from harmful things. Hence, like chain mail, al-Maghfirah was that mesh made of iron rings which was worn below the helmet, and which used to cover the neck and shoulders in such a way that a sword had no effect on it, and in this way the wearer used to remain protected from the strike of an assailant. In light of the basic meaning of this root, the meanings of Maghfirat becomes clear, that is providing some kind of protection. If we look at it from the bodily aspect, then there is a constant attack by those germs or bacteria which can destroy his health and ultimately his life. But nature has placed the power of defense within him, which is such that it counteracts these destructive elements, and by overcoming them, kills them. So this is, in today's medical term, we call it immunity. In this way, man remains protected from destruction. If at any time these destructive elements adopt the form of epidemic diseases, then these people are instructed to take preventive measures. But if someone's defensive power becomes weak and these destructive elements overwhelm him, then a physician devises measures to enhance the defensive power of this invalid. That is, through medicines and vitamins, their immunity is improved. If this power increases, then it destroys these destructive elements. These are called curative measures. Whether they are preventive measures or curative measures, they will nevertheless be termed measures to remain protected from destruction. In physical life, this is Maghfirat, and demanding and adopting these measures will be termed istighfar. The meaning of istighfar is to seek Maghfirat, that is protection. And that means we have to enhance our understanding. We have to gain knowledge that how the risks are managed in our life. Continuing with Maghfirat and balancing of deeds, that aspect we'll look into it. As with physical life, the state of the life of the human self is also the same. Its development takes place by living life according to the divine values. For this, it is essential that protective measures are taken in order to defend against assaults by those elements which can be the cause for their disintegration. That means we should be aware of these elements as well. But if it ever happens that those disintegrating elements overcome the human self, then the requirement for those measures which can be the cause for strengthening of the human self will become urgent, i.e., acting on the divine values with even greater intensity. Obtaining protection according to this program will be called Maghfirat. Consequently, the Quran has explained it in a practical way using the metaphor of a balance, a set of scales. It has stated that human life has two sides of a balance. On one side of the scale pan are the constructive elements, that is virtues, and on the other side are the destructive elements, evils or sins. And Quran says, then he whose balance of good deeds will be found heavy will be in a life of good pleasure and satisfaction. But he whose balance of good deeds will be found light will have his home in a bottomless pit. So it's a fair system. Whatever we do in life, that has an impact on ourselves. Of course, it has an impact on others as well. But ultimately, the decision will be that how much good we have after acquiring Iman, because Iman is absolutely essential for self-development. Then our fate will be decided, which means we should know that how much good we have done in our life. If such a situation arises, then at that time there can only be one way to be saved from destruction, and that is that more weight is inserted into the pan containing the constructive deeds of man, i.e., the greatest amount possible of further constructive deeds should be performed. And that is what Quran says, that after acquiring Iman, do salih deeds, and don't wait till one is nearing death. Keep doing it all your life and become that mu'min who is assured of the hereafter right in this life. Achieving protection from destruction in this way is called Maghfirat, and the meaning of istighfar is to strive and toil for this protection. The Quran has explained in a couple of words how protection from destruction is achieved, and this is that fundamental principle which clarifies this whole issue superbly. The Quran has declared, for those things that are good, remove those that are evil. And we have gone through this verse previously as well. Next is some verses highlighting this attribute of Maghfirat. The supplication of Adam, Rabbana zalamna anfusana wa in lam taghfir lana wa tarhamna la nakunanna min al-khasirin. And if you remember that Adam had made a mistake, that is, he was told not to go near a certain aspect of his life, which Quran called as shajar. And then he learned these words and asked for maghfirat or protection. O our Rabb, indeed we did injustice to ourselves, Adam and his spouse, and unless you provide protection and rahmat for us, we will be ruined. And this is the beauty of the Quran, that wherever it says taghfir lana wa tarhamna, that Ghafoor and Rahim are mentioned just to encourage us that it is not only protection, but after that protection is acquired, then further nourishment and development will take place if we follow the precepts of the Quran. The plea submitted by the messenger Nuh was, Qala Rabbi inni a'udhu bika an as'alaka ma laysa li bihi ilmun wa la taghfirli wa tarhamni akum min al-khasirin. And this is in response to when he asked for protection for his son. And Allah said that your son is not from your family. And then Messenger Nuh said these words. Nuh said, I asked my question without possessing knowledge. Unless you provide protection and rahmat. See, again, protection and rahmat are there. That a mistake has been made and then protection has been obtained, and then there is a growth element in it. I will be amongst those who lose in life. Protection comes through deeds. Wa'adallahu allazina amanu wa amilu salihate lahum maghfiratun wa ajrun azim. Again, we can see that after maghfirah, then there is a reward which is supreme. Right at the basic level, human beings are taken care of through their self. Allah has promised to those who accept Iman and then bring out their latent potentials through solid deeds that there will be protection and a supreme reward. And the beauty of the Quran is that it doesn't leave anything abstract in the air. It provides us evidence-based solution to our problems. And amilus salihate, that is all your latent potentials which you have. Once you bring them out during this life, you will know yourself that you are on the right path and you have got the protection as well as the reward is with you. Because developed self in itself becomes an evidence of this particular, what is noted in this verse. In relation to the above, a reminder is given, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَكَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَحِيمِ. And on the contrary, after stating that Amanu wa Amilus Salihate will provide you Maghfirat, then the Quran says, on the other hand, Jahim, that is stagnation, inertia, zero self-development shall be the abode of those who resort to kufr. And if we are following this path and have brought out some of our latent potentials through these deeds which the Quran has put forward, then we can compare the state of our own self with those who are still going around in circles, who haven't come to the Quran or have come to the Quran half-heartedly and then given up, that their understanding, their life's outlook is still the same. And this happens. It is not otherworldly. We can observe it. On the other hand, Jahim shall be the abode of those who resort to kufr, that is rejection of the laws of Allah and falsify His signs. A few more verses related to seeking protection. The path of the Quran has protection inbuilt into it. Ma yuqalu laka illa ma qad qila lirrusuli min qablika inna rabbaka lazu maghfiratin wazu iqabin Al-Aleem. Whatever they say includes their thoughts as well to you regarding our message. It is not new. Similar things were said to messengers who came before you. Your Rabb will certainly protect you from their wicked opposition and will pursue them with chasing consequences. So important thing over here is that though over here the examples of previous messengers been given to the last messenger, but now since no messenger is coming, it is applicable to all of us that on this path one should never give up or become disheartened or discouraged. If one is following the laws of Allah, then the results of these efforts will materialize at some point. And in any case, through self-development, one can judge that this development is taking place in the light of the Quran. There is no protection if man keeps treading on the wrong path. Inna allazina kafaru wa zalamu lam yakunillahu liyaghfir lahum wala liyahdiyahum tariqan. And Quran says those who resort to kufr and as a consequence perpetuate zulm, that is injustice. And this is bound to happen. It is not possible that one is on the path of kufr and not doing injustice in the world. They will be doing injustice to themselves and injustice to others, whether they know about it or not, but they are bound to commit injustices in the world. And that is how we can look at it in the world of 2025. They will never find protection from Allah, nor will they find the straight path to the destination prescribed by Him. And we can look at the verses before and after as well, because there is quite a bit of continuity in this verse. In order to live a protected life, the procedure is summed up, وَإِنِّي لَغَفَارٌ لِمَنْ تَابَ وَآمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا ثُمَّ اهْتَدَى. The only way to acquire protection from the disorder is to return to the righteous path as ordained. Accept Iman and do salih deeds. This is the path of guidance. So Quran over here has very clearly explained what protection is, what it means to have Maghfirat or to achieve this particular attribute. Taba, that is wherever we have learned that we have made a mistake, we should go back to the point where we took a wrong turn. Amana, then accept Iman in Allah. We know Iman means وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ, that after rejecting the man-made system and its values, we come to Allah and then do those deeds by which our best comes out. All those latent potentials which we simply do not know when we live a life without the Quran. Made it very clear to the Momineen, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu in tattaqullaha yaj'al lakum furqanan wa yukaffir ankum sayyi'atikum wa yaghfir lakum wallahu zul fadlil azim. O Jamaat Momineen, become Muttaqi, and which means over here it is important for us to understand that if we want to acquire this Maghfirat as an attribute, we have to become Muttaqi first, so that we learn what are the laws and values of the Quran and then know the procedure of everything. And then once we have become Muttaqi and mistakes are made, then this particular attribute will come into play, that we should know that there will be a protection in this system. Because when we follow this path, because of the man-made system in which we are living, we are bound to make some mistakes at some point. Not deliberately, but out of sometimes ignorance or because of the circumstances not in our control. So this aspect we should keep in mind, that what is the relationship between Muttaqi and Maghfirat, which will lead to achieving the ability to discern and will remove the ill effects of your flaws and provide protection to you. Allah is the supreme possessor of Fadl. So all these attributes which are noted in this verse, we have to reflect in our own personalities, in our own selves, in order to come to terms with the system of Deen. Now we go to the next divine attribute of today's presentation, Al-Kareem. The root is given here, that characteristic which is against being mean. Among Arabs, being mean was considered to be the worst trait. This is why Karm was considered to be the best attribute. In reality, its meaning was to carry such a burden due to which there is protection of the blood and the life of the nation. So that is the collective aspect of Kareem, i.e. to strive for very valuable collective affairs and to spend in the path of matters of welfare. So we should keep in mind that all these attributes which we are making effort to reflect in our own personalities, in our own self, these start from individual, but ultimately individual becomes the part of the collective system, a Jamaat. Some have said that it means to provide benefit to others as per need, without any self-interest and benefit. It also means sincerity. And this aspect becomes very clear once we look at all the attributes which are noted in the Quran for Momineen who prefer the needs of others over their own. To provide benefit in such a way which includes eminence and loftiness, and in which there is nothing suggestive of humiliation and ridicule. So that means that whatever we do, we should be absolutely vigilant all the time, alert to it, that our actions, our thoughts, our manners are not causing any humiliation or ridicule to fellow human beings. From this respect, Al-Kareem is such a comprehensive characteristic in which every kind of good, elevation and eminence are included. Al-Kareem is noted about such a person in whom no negative aspect is to be found. That means all the negative aspects which human beings have under the state of not being guided by the Quran, those have to be removed. And in order to remove them, we have to be first become aware of them. Furthermore, it is about a free and gentle, generous and happy-natured person who keeps himself protected from disobedience of the laws of Allah. So a very high level of alertness and consciousness is required on this path. Plentiful rain is also termed as being Kareem, such a fertile land which produces a good yield. And we can say we should have a very fertile self which always produces good yield. A person cannot be called Kareem until the manifestation of Karm does not emerge in him. And this is as per Raghib. Next is Al-Kareem, expanding it further. Allah is Al-Kareem, and Quran says, Ya ayyuhal insanu ma gharraka bi rabbikal kareem. O human being, you are revolting against the divine laws. What is keeping you away from the Kareem Rabb? And see, the Kareem and Rabb have come together, and we know about Rububiyat, which deals with the means of sustenance, and then it has to be Kareem. The benefits of Rububiyat, i.e. your own purpose and its eminence, and inciting you to violence. So the Quran over here is asking us as human beings that what is keeping you away from the book of Allah and not making efforts in this direction as companion of Allah. So this verse has to be analyzed in the light of the overall context of the system of Deen. Allah's messengers were Kareem, وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا قَبْلَهُمْ قَوْمَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَجَاءَهُمْ رَسُولٌ كَرِيمٌ. The same took place earlier with the nation of Pharaoh. On account of their rebellion, they suffered the consequences and said that if these sufferings are removed, they would accept Iman and his guidance. But they reverted to the same path after they recovered from these sufferings. And this is another important point, that people do suffer and they sometimes come back to the Quran. And for example, sometimes they become a bit religious as well, and then they forget and go back to their previous machinations and previous path. A messenger with the divine attribute of Kareem came towards them. And it also means now the messengers are not coming, then the students of the Quran have to become Kareem and then influence others and pass it on to others, that the path, wrong path being pursued by people under the man-made system is not acceptable. Momineen also become Kareem, that is display this divine attribute. Bima ghafara li Rabbi waja'alni minal mukrameen. I wish my people could understand that in return for following this correct path which I have adopted and toward which I am inviting them. How Allah has provided me with protection and has included me in the category of highly eminent individuals. So if one is displaying and manifesting these aspects of becoming Kareem, of course with other divine attributes as well, and one knows it, then there is no harm in attracting the attention of fellow human beings, particularly those who have come to the Quran, that this is how it functions. And this is important because just like evil which spreads from person to person, same ways the goodness or the virtues also spread from person to person. And one should not keep it to oneself. If one has acquired certain attributes and benefited, then these should be shared with others. Next is some more verses highlighting its importance. The Quran itself is Kareem, innahu la Quranun Kareem. The evidence regarding the stars continuing from previous verses will support this fact, that how very beneficial this Quran is and how it gives the guarantee towards the attainment of a prosperous and successful, that is Kareem life. Those who follow the Quran will become inna akramakum indallahi atqakum innallaha alimun khabir. This one verse we should remember by heart. Indeed, according to the divine law, the criteria for defining ranks is how closely and conscientiously one follows and guards the divine laws. That is how good one becomes as Muttaqi. The criteria for high rank is not race or status, but personal character as noted in the Quran. And remember, Allah has knowledge of this and is fully aware of it, as should the Momineen be. So Momineen needs to be Aleem and Khabir of their own self-development, their own status of their self in relation to what is given in the Quran and its signs, and they should also pass it on to others and not keep it to themselves. Before destruction, the nations face humiliation and disgrace in the world. And Quran says, فَأَخْرَجْنَهُمْ مِنْ جَنَّاتٍ وَعُيُونٍ. We threw out, as per our law of requital, Pharaoh and his chiefs and deprived them of their gardens and springs. And then Quran says, وَكُنُوزٍ وَمَقَامٍ كَرِيمٍ. From their treasures and their stature of respect, that is Kareem. So Kareem can be with respect to the man-made system where people gain some wealth and some possessions and they think that they have achieved a higher status. But that is a status according to the man-made system, not according to the Quran. كَذَلِكَ وَأَوْرَثْنَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. And then Quran says, in this way we made Bani Israel inherit all this, because Bani Israel had started to follow the right path, and as a result, under the messenger Musa, they were able to defeat Pharaoh and then were established in the land. The definition of Kareem of man-made systems is different from that of the Quran. فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَمَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَانِ. Owing to erroneous thinking of unbridled minds, whenever someone draws benefits from the man-made systems, he assumes and says, this is Allah's blessing which he bestows on anyone he likes, meaning that there are no set laws in this regard. And we see these kind of things where people make a lot of gains under the man-made system, and they attribute it to Allah as if Allah has bestowed on them, not realizing that they are beneficiaries of the Iblisi system. And this distinction is very important. Otherwise, we can never ever come to the Quran. If one is fully satisfied with the man-made system and thinks that the accruing of material benefits is all that is what life is, then he or she is not going to come to the Quran, which point to the wrong system created due to this kind of erroneous thinking. And next is concluding remarks. We have looked at 3 divine attributes very briefly to acquaint ourselves with their importance in acquiring that self through which we can understand the system of Deen and its finer aspects as noted in the Quran. It is not possible that to cover these 3 divine attributes in a few sessions, because, for example, in the case of the first attribute which we looked at, Al-Hakeem, virtually we'll have to cover whole of the Quran. So we got a taster of it, and in our own time, if we go through the Quran as a practice, that wherever these attributes have appeared, we look at these verses and see that how can we relate it to our own self, and how can we manifest this attribute in order to meet the requirement of that particular verse in which it is quoted. The more of these attributes that we reflect in ourselves, the more our vision expands, and we start to see and experience the man-made world in the light of the Quranic laws. We know from our observation and experience in the man-made world that once the human intellect becomes convinced of the benefits of something, then it makes efforts to understand it further and finds ways and means to act in order to obtain those benefits. For example, education, training, business affairs, gaining experience, social relations, acquisition of power, or to be close to the centers of power, political pursuits, wars, etc. So the important thing for us is to convince ourselves, and we can measure that conviction as well in the light of the Quran, that to what extent we are fully convinced about the Quran. And if we are not fully convinced, then we should make an effort, even discuss with others. The Quran, by exposing us to the true reality of our existence, by bringing in self-development into it, informs us that we are not left to the mercy of the Iblisi forces in the world, but have an alternative to this choice. Without the existence of choices in life, our life stagnates or enters a state of Jahim, individual and collective. The Quran tells us that though in physical terms Allah is not visible, we can understand Him through His attributes and signs. By understanding these attributes as part of our choice to seek guidance, we can not only become familiar with our latent potentials, but also manifest these gradually in the outer world by following the formula of Iman plus solid deeds. In fact, as we manifest these latent potentials, we should also enjoy the pleasure associated with that this was something I did not know that it exists within myself, and now through the Quran I have been able to manifest it. When these latent potentials start to display in ourselves, then they become evidence of the truth of the Quran, and the subsequent change in our self's level of development leads to further strengthening of our Iman in the Book of Allah. This inner change then puts us on the path called Sirat-e-Mustaqim. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.